Hello and welcome to Diversity Matters, a podcast by MDI, Media Diversity Institute, exploring all issues related to diversity. I'm Tanya Sakzewski. Thank you for joining me. In this episode, we're going to Serbia to examine how the international media, mainly the English language press, has been covering the months-long student-led protests there. They started in November after a railway station roof collapsed, which has claimed the lives of more than 15 people now. The demonstrators are calling for accountability and an end to corruption. So who better to join me as co-host this time than Anja Anđušić from MDI's Western Balkans office. She's a media monitor there and also a student, although I must point out she doesn't speak on behalf of the student movement. Hi, Anja.
Hi, Tanya. I'm happy to be here. And here with us today is our guest in Canada, Vladimir Paskaljevic. He's an award-winning film director, screenwriter, and producer. He also teaches at several universities in Canada, where he now lives and works, but he is originally from Serbia. Welcome, Vladimir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Vladimir. What we're talking about is sort of the foreign or English language media coverage of the protests in Serbia. So You're in Toronto. It would be good to start off with a view of what's happening there, because you led a petition demanding the public broadcaster there, CBC, cover what's happening in Serbia more. Can you tell us about that?
Well, about 3 months ago, we had these extensive protests in Serbia. The extensive protests in Serbia started, and we saw that there's absolutely any coverage in any media. Serbia is not on the radar like for the last 20 years because they are not, they don't have assigned journalists that follow the events in Serbia and anything. So we thought that it might be useful to start it. What started happening 3 months ago in Serbia, we thought it was brutal. That corruption case in which kind of 16 people are killed, 100,000 people gathering on the street, public Serbian broadcast company totally ignoring them. Like, we thought that it might be useful that we try to do something so that Canadian media starts following the whole case. And I don't think we were very successful because it was right in a moment when Trudeau resigned, the Premier Trudeau, and Trump won the election. So the media was all over the place, and he announced tariffs against Canada. So Canada has its own problem. Generally, Canadian media escape, in my opinion, as far as I can see, it's like 50% is about domestic problems, 40% USA, and 10% the rest of the world. So we are kind of battling for the media space, between the big news from, Ukraine, Russia, or some other bigger countries. So we realized immediately that we're gonna be unnoticed unless we do something. So what we are planning to do next is going to hopefully be noticed finally. Okay, I must admit first that after 15th of March and usage of sonic weapons against its own citizens, CBC started taking news from others, so at least. But we hope to gain more coverage in May because we are now organizing protest for democracy against totalitarianisms in the world, together with Persian, Iranian, and Turkish community.
Just briefly, can you tell me how much support you had for this protest and this petition? Like, who were the supporters? Was it the diaspora only, or was it a bit wider?
Well, it was first time when we gathered. We gathered spontaneously, like it was me and one single person that I knew, and we said, let's go and let's be the only protesters in front of the Serbian consulate, like two of us, doesn't matter. And we posted that information on the Facebook. To our surprise, I think the first day it was about 250 protesters. Even one side of the street was closed. And it was great, actually. Later, we had kind of every weekend, almost between 100 and maybe 150 protest supporters, rather say.
So I believe the movement here is very value driven. We've seen solidarity, we've seen unity here in Serbia on the ground, but also in some Serbian media. Is that translated well in Canadian media and other international media? Can you see the values behind the protests?
They are really, the reports are very scanty, and they accent that the young people want change. That's for sure. That it's a student-led protest. It's very often mentioned that actually between the line or on the surface, that actually nobody knows how the students will change the system in Serbia without concrete political leadership and elections. But actually, I think the point is lost there in translation, because the students, their demands are not change of government, but basic respect of the constitution and the laws, which says, okay, if the canopy collapsed, then produce all the documents so that everybody can see why the canopy collapsed, so that everybody can track the money, and so that we can see why, basic transparency. I think it's about basic values which are at stake here. I think that's the message that they should focus on, and I think it's good because it mobilized hundreds of thousands of people in Serbia, and because they don't have a political program, like they're not a political party, they don't want place in the government, they want what already exists in a law to be applied, because we don't see application of the written laws. That's the problem. We have completely different situation on infield.
I guess this is a question for both of you, because Anja, you're in Belgrade, and obviously Vladimir, you're abroad. But what difference do you think that kind of international coverage earlier on could have made? Would it have had any impact on what was going on in Serbia? Why was it so vital to have more coverage?
Because when the world has an eye on a situation, that makes it kind of more important and more and puts even more pressure on not just the government but all other stakeholders to really create change.
Well, I think that it's super important that the foreign media covers, because Serbia was once in the 90s problem of the world, right? The part of that problem was current president of Serbia. He was part of the problem because back then, during the wars, he was Minister of Information during period of government of Slobodan Milosevic. He was Minister of Information, and during his mandate, some journalists were shot because of his kind of schemes and let's call it so, economic contacts with certain individuals and corporations in the world. Probably it's not good for him to become a problem again. The students are documenting so well whatever they do. We can track their peaceful protests every second, every corner of it in real time, like 10 hours of videos you can find on YouTube. So nobody can say that the things have happened in the different way. But it's also very important because the world is swamped with all sorts of live coverage and information from all corners of the world. It's super important that the foreign media steps in. Foreign coverage can kind of hinder the regime, refrain them from beating up the students, which they extensively do, which is well documented, filmed on camera. So without foreign media, I think the young people of Serbia that peacefully protest, which is documented, I say, they would kind of feel like they're in a blind alley, that nobody watches them, like they become easier prey.
let's actually talk about students and young people and their role in the media coverage. What we have seen in Serbia for now several years, as we track this through our research, is that youth voices are generally ignored in the media. They're almost completely left out, and they're only mentioned in reports on crime or security issues. But what we have seen now in this latest report is really a completely different picture, because now we see youth voices, first of all, more regularly in media, but also a different picture of youth generally, because now we see the activism, civic engagement, and so on. Was this translated in international media as well? Could we hear youth voices? Could we hear students and young people from Serbia in Canadian media, let's say, and other international media?
Well, I don't think that specific. Maybe there maybe a couple of coverages from Serbia, or included couple of lines from the students and young people. I didn't do the thorough research on that. I can tell you only from what I see at the first sight. They usually rely on, as I say, Associated Press and some other external sources. So I think it's super important to accent what the youth wants, because there's general. I can notice in entire world that the youth, the young people are neglected, that they become apathetic. They don't find their niche in the current political options. So they're kind of depoliticized, if I can say so. I think great thing that I heard in one of the first interviews of the students of Jovina Gimnazija, which is high school in Novi Sad. There was kind of very, very early interview with students who protested. They said, we finally feel like we have some sort of, political influence. We thought that we are totally kind of, like neglected, like children, like underage. So it's good that people are waking up. I think it's good that young people start realizing that the world is on them, that they become less reliant on what we, the elders, will do for them, that they have to realize, at the early age that they have to make their way to gain their rights and to build the world they want to live in. And that's the most important. The young realize that they have to build the world and not take for granted everything from the elders. That's a great and very deep change, much deeper than if we had overturning the president in presidential election. Because from what I observed, going to Serbia every now and then, is that the young were totally apathetic.
We're running out of time, so a really quick answer to follow up on that. Do you think the media is listening to them, or ready to listen to them more?
I follow more and more media, social media, and what I find on the internet than the TV. So I think, there's always some sort of accent on young people. Everybody wants to leave impression that they're kind of hearing the young, but I don't think so, honestly. I don't think so. For example, one thing that disappointed me very much in North America is whenever I mentioned Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, which is, in my opinion, a very, very intelligent person, and which is a voice of younger generations, of which are more than 50% segment in USA, way more, maybe 60 to 70. I mean, I'm talking about people under 40. Everybody said she's too young, which is basically ageism. And nobody uttered, hey, this is ageism, if you know what I mean. So I think that the general bad habit of this planet, of this human race, is to kind of believe that we should kind of listen to the elders, wisers, and that, the necessarily age is associated with wisdom, which is not always and necessarily the case. So I think that the world needs to hear more the young voices.
Vladimir, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for your insights into the media coverage in Canada particularly, and what you're trying to do to change that dynamic. and the views from outside on what's going on in Serbia. It's been great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks again to Vladimir for his insights into the media coverage of the Serbian protests. And Anja, thank you for joining me. It's great to have you as a co-host and hear your experience of the protests, obviously sitting there in Belgrade. What I found interesting about what Vladimir had to say was just his thoughts on why international coverage was so important for a movement like this, but also the importance of the media paying attention to youth voices. I know that's something that, obviously the students would quite like as well.
Yes, Tanya. Youth voices are finally heard, I would say, in the media, and let's see if that continues on.
Thanks again, Anja. And thank you for joining me for this episode of Diversity Matters, brought to you by Media Diversity Institute. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to your company again. Take care.